The last message he sent me is still sitting in my phone. Unread. Not because I didn't see it. Not because I didn't notice the notification lighting up my screen in the middle of the night. But because I know something terrifying about love. Once you open the door to it again, it doesn't knock politely. It storms in. And Daniel was the kind of love that could destroy every wall I spent years building. The rain was heavy that night. Not the romantic kind that makes couples kiss under umbrellas. This was the kind of rain that flooded streets, rattled windows, and made the world feel lonely. I was lying on my couch with the lights off, my phone glowing softly in the dark. My life had become quiet over the last 2 years. Predictable. Safe. No chaos. No heartbreak. No Daniel. Then my phone vibrated. Just once. I picked it up absent-mindedly, expecting a random notification or a message from work. But the moment I saw the name on the screen, my heart forgot how to beat. Daniel. For a second I thought I was imagining it. I hadn't seen his name on my phone in 2 years. 2 long years of pretending I had moved on. 2 years of convincing myself that the boy who once knew every corner of my heart was now just a memory. But there it was. A message. My hand suddenly felt cold as I opened the notification preview. I know I shouldn't text you. But I never stopped loving you. 6 words. 6 small, quiet words. But they carried the weight of an entire past I had tried so hard to bury. I stared at the screen for a long time. The rain outside slowed, but the storm inside my chest had only just begun. Because the truth was something I had never told anyone. Not my friends. Not my family. Not even myself. I never stopped loving him either. And the worst part? It all started with coffee. 3 years ago, I was the girl who believed she had everything under control. I had plans, goals, and a life mapped out carefully like a checklist. Graduate. Start my career. Write the novel I had been dreaming about since I was 16. Love was never supposed to interrupt that plan. Especially not in the chaotic, messy way Daniel did. The first time I met him, I ran straight into him. Literally. I was rushing through the university cafe, juggling my phone and a cup of coffee while trying to reply to an email from my professor. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. Then suddenly, impact. The coffee flew out of my hands like a slow-motion disaster. Brown liquid splashed across his white shirt. The floor. And what little dignity I had left. Oh my God, I gasped, staring at the stain spreading across his chest. I am so sorry. For a moment he just looked down at himself. I expected anger. Annoyance. Something. But instead, he started laughing. Not a fake polite laugh. A real one. The kind that made his shoulders shake and his eyes squint. Well, he said, wiping coffee off his sleeve, this is definitely the most creative introduction I've ever had. My face burned with embarrassment. I'll pay for the shirt, I blurted. He shook his head. You don't have to do that. I insist. He thought for a moment. Then he smiled in a way that would later become dangerously familiar. You can buy me another coffee instead. I blinked. You're literally covered in coffee. Exactly, he said casually. Now I need a fresh one. That was Daniel. Effortless. Charming in a way that never felt forced. Within 10 minutes we were sitting at a table near the window with 2 new cups of coffee between us. What was supposed to be a quick apology turned into a conversation that lasted hours. We talked about everything. Music. Movies. Childhood memories. Dreams we hadn't told anyone. Daniel had this strange ability to make people open up without realizing it. When he listened, he didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone. He just looked at you like your words mattered. It was disarming. A tech company, he said simply. I raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious. So are you, he replied instantly. How do you know? You told me you want to write stories that make people feel less alone. I had forgotten I mentioned that. But he remembered. And for some reason, that small detail stayed with me. Our first date lasted 6 hours. Our second date lasted 8. Somewhere between late-night walks and endless conversations, Daniel stopped being a stranger and started feeling like home. He wasn't perfect. He was messy. Forgetful. Always working on some new idea. But when he looked at me, I felt seen in a way I never had before. One night during exam season, I broke down crying in my dorm room. Stress. Pressure. Life piling up too fast. I didn't tell anyone. Except Daniel. 40 minutes later, he was knocking on my door. He stood there holding snacks, blankets, and my favorite movie. You drove across the city for this? I asked in disbelief. He shrugged. You sounded like you needed backup. That night we sat on the floor watching a terrible romantic comedy. Halfway through the movie, I fell asleep with my head resting on his chest. Before drifting off completely, I heard him whisper something softly. You don't have to be strong all the time. It was such a simple sentence. But no one had ever said that to me before. And somehow, that was the moment I truly fell in love with him. Our relationship wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Comfortable. Safe. The kind of love that grows slowly until one day you realize you can't imagine life without the other person. One evening we sat on the rooftop of his apartment building. The city stretched below us, glowing with thousands of tiny lights. Daniel held my hand while staring at the skyline. I'm going to marry you someday, he said casually. I laughed nervously. You say that very confidently. I am confident. Why? He turned his head and looked at me with that same calm certainty. Because when I imagine my future, you're already there. I didn't know it then. But that moment would haunt me for years. Because sometimes the most beautiful promises are the ones life refuses to keep. As Daniel's startup idea began gaining attention, everything started changing. Slowly. Almost invisibly. He stayed up later working. Investor meetings filled his schedule. Phone calls became shorter. Dates were postponed. I'm doing this for our future, he told me one night while typing on his laptop. I believed him. But somewhere along the way, his dreams started taking up all the space between us. The night we broke up didn't feel important at first. It started with something small. He forgot our anniversary. Not just the dinner plans. The entire day. When he finally called at midnight, I was furious. You promised we'd celebrate tonight. I had an investor meeting, he said, sounding exhausted. You always have something more important. That's not fair. Something inside me snapped. Your company will always come before me. That's not true. Then prove it. There was silence on the phone. Long. Heavy. Then I said the words I would regret forever. Maybe we shouldn't be together anymore. More silence. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded distant. Maybe you're right. And just like that, we were over. There was no dramatic goodbye. No tears. No final embrace. Just two people slowly letting go of something they once thought would last forever. The months after the breakup felt unreal. Like walking through life with a missing piece of yourself. I dated other people eventually. Nice people. Kind people. But none of them were Daniel. None of them looked at me like I mattered more than the world. None of them made my heart feel like it had finally come home. And that's the dangerous thing about loving someone deeply. Even after they're gone, their shadow stays behind. So now here I am. 2 years later. Staring at his message again. I never stopped loving you. My heart pounds in my chest. Because the truth is painfully simple. I still love him. Not because I'm weak. Not because I'm lonely. But because some people leave fingerprints on your soul. And no matter how much time passes, you never fully wash them away. My finger hovers over the screen. One tap. That's all it would take. One tap to reopen a story I thought had ended. Outside, the rain has stopped. The city is quiet. Almost like the world itself is holding its breath. I take a deep breath. And finally, I open the message. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing in the world isn't heartbreak. It's the possibility that the love you lost might still be waiting for you.